Remember, all the early votes are counted. They just have to release them. So
your early impressions, I know it's early, but just for the sake of a horse race.
I am really surprised at how close the race is, not just between Cruz and O'Rourke, which I'd expected, but it's also, I think, cascading over to the other candidates.
Like Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick
Yes.
and Paxton, Sid Miller. I think what you're seeing, and it's something that the Republicans knew a couple of years ago, that Republicans like to split their ticket. And when you have a candidate like Attorney General Paxton, who's had some problems being under indictment and going to trial, when Sid Miller makes what I will call, inappropriate remarks, I'm a little surprised about Dan Patrick and the governor. They were running in the polls 16 points up, and I think this is a case of where voters are probably doing something very different than what they're telling their pollsters.
But you said something so telling. You said in early polling, or in polling rather, it was different. And we learned from the 2016 election that just because things are one way in polling,
the whole story.
Right?
Well, what's interesting is the polling is asymmetric. It's as if Republicans were not willing to tell pollsters, or at least not willing to say, I'm going to vote for Abbott, but I'm not voting for Cruz. Now, it's much too early. But I'll give you one example. I mentioned in the last segment, Tarrant County, which is, of course, a Republican county, not overwhelmingly, next to Dallas. It went dead even between Cruz and O'Rourke. So my suspicion, but yet, for the governor, he was winning 55-45. So I think what you're beginning to see is some evidence that though people want to stay with the governor, lieutenant governor, the attorney general Paxton, they may not have liked Ted Cruz.
Do you think, let's speak nationally now, the Democrats need 23 seats to win the House? Will they get it?
Yeah, I think they're at probably 16 as we entered the newsroom this evening.
Oh, really? Is it 16 already?
They picked up another seat in Miami. I think they'll get that number. Whether they'll get much over that number, I think the betting was something around 32, 33. My personal number was 37, but I think they will take the House. I don't think they'll take the House by what I will call the landslide of 50 seats.
Got it.
The Senate, I think we already just saw tonight that Braun beat Donnelly in Indiana. That is not an absolute fix, but he's running 5 to 6 points up. I think Nelson may lose in Florida. He was trailing.
But the Republicans are expected to hold on to the Senate.
I think
don't think there's any doubt about that.
They're going to pick up at least between 1 and 3, and let's call it 2 more seats. The Democrats might pick up some seats in the far west, like Arizona or Nevada, but unlikely to get both. So it's somewhere between 1 and 3, maybe closer to 2, maybe even as few as 1. But the Democrats may get, I think, I'd say almost at this point, it's a close certainty they'll get the House. How much, we don't know.
Right. So much at stake here. It really is high stakes tonight.
The other thing that we don't pay a lot of attention to, I tell my students, there are other races on the ballot in the country, governors. And you say, well, governor, how important can it be if it's another state? Really important.
Why?
Governors, 2020 will be a redistricting year. Many say that one of the reasons the Republicans have such an advantage is they've been controlling the redistricting in 36 of the 50 states. But if you elect Democratic governors in those same states where Republicans control one or both houses, those governors, particularly in states like Ohio, have veto power over the redistricting plan. That gives the Democrats some edge to compete, and it looks like tonight they're going to be picking up not a yeoman's share, but 3 or 4 important ones, particularly in a state like Ohio. Looks like Corday was leading DeWine.
We were talking about Congress, and one of the fascinating races to watch here is the incumbent, John Culberson, against Lizzie Fletcher. I don't think, has Lizzie even run before?
No, she's never run for an office.
And so she's an attorney, a partner in a law firm?
Women on the ballot this year, more than ever.
It's historic, but more importantly, how can I put this in? I think that one we won't. You'll be asleep before we know that one. I think that'll go down to the overseas votes. I think the polling was accurate on that, within 1 or 2 points, and I think you're going to probably see a late night on that one, and maybe even a recount.
Let's talk about the female impact here, Bob. Both all the women that we're seeing on the ballot, and then voter turnout as far as women are concerned, and which women are showing up at the polls or have shown up.
Well, women have traditionally in our county outpolled men. This time that number is getting wider. Particularly women of color have outpolled their male counterparts in the African American community and the Hispanic community. But something else we hadn't seen in a long time, tremendous new registration among young women and young women of color. The other is we're seeing record numbers of women running, not just for the Congress or around the country, but something else we've not seen in a long time. Women of what I will call an unusual stripe. They're not coming in with long experiences in public service. Usually the best candidates are men and women who've run before, raised money, have a name. Fletcher might have been in politics, but she's never really been a candidate. And you can go through dozens of House candidates around the country, women, and they're not the women you would expect. Some with military records, some with extensive experience in business, some with kids who are no much older than infants, and they're making very important strides. I think a good example of that is Donna Shalala, who's the other end of the generation, came in and a former college president and professor, and she looks like she's a pickup in Southern Florida.
You know, Republican or Democrat, it's great to see all of these women taking part in the process and seeking office. Bob Stein, thanks so much. You're going to stay with us.